I have worked for British Army like 60 months, and now my life is in danger, and the Mujahideen threat me and my family. They want my two daughters to wedding for their fighters. Otherwise, they kill me. And I have touch with the British embassy for help.
The Brits gone, the Americans gone, and Afghanistan slides towards civil war. Here in Herat, the leader of the council in a gunfight with the Taliban on the street. Open fighting also in Lashkar. And for the many interpreters who say they worked for the Brits, imagine the sense of betrayal.
As a British lawmaker and a former soldier, what do you say to him?
We owe a huge debt of gratitude to all of those who worked as translators and supported the work that we did through the British Armed Forces. And there are still, I think, about 450 who've not been able to get asylum to come to this country. And I've raised their plight with the Foreign Secretary, Dominic Raab, and I hope very much he will look again at what more we can do to support those people who are under huge threat at the moment.
You're clearly very pessimistic about the future.
The Taliban are in the ascendancy at the moment, and if they were to take overall control of the country, that would be disastrous.
Since April, the Taliban, shown in red here, have advanced mainly through rural areas across the country. They're closing in around population centres like Herat, Lashkar and Kandahar. Contested areas, shown in orange, are shrinking. The government, in grey, left with control of the capital, Kabul, and the country's centre. The Taliban are again trying to turn back the clock, bombing little girls who would dare to go to school. For Britain, this is about more than our responsibility to interpreters. Across the country, there are hundreds of thousands of internal refugees. For decades now, Afghanistan has suffered foreign occupation, hardline Islamist rule, or anarchy under warlords.
There was war, bombs were being dropped. My father was killed and a lot of my relatives as well, so we had to flee. I didn't want my children to die, so we came here with my elderly mother.
The sons of former warlords now walk the hills above Kabul ready with arms. The roads around Bagram patrolled by the Afghan army. The US and NATO allies now departed. In this mix, how does Britain exert influence? More importantly, how will Afghanistan's neighbours intervene? Pakistan, Iran and China.
Well, earlier I spoke to the Afghan MP, Fazana Kochai, who's in Kabul, and I asked her what citizens under attack are experiencing.
Yes, unfortunately, the things that are happening nowadays in Afghanistan, it's the prices has been paying by the civilian, by the common people in Afghanistan. They are paying the price for that. They're paying the price by their lives, by their houses, by all things that they had. So the situation is so bad for the common people, for the people in Afghanistan, especially in 10 provinces that that are under attack of Taliban directly. They are trying to leave the areas, but unfortunately, the war now on some provinces came to the cities, the center of the provinces. So people are like, they're thinking that where to go now. Before they were used to leave the districts and the back areas to the cities, to the center of the provinces. But nowadays they are fighting in active war in the cities, in the center of the cities, provinces.
And what does it mean specifically for women?
Women in this war are paying a high price. They are not safe like other civilian, other Afghan people, but the price that they are paying with their lives, like they are being forced to marry Taliban fighters. Women are losing their families members. They are losing their sons, husbands, fathers, and these are all family members, but still they are suffering from forced marriage and underage marriage. Like Taliban are taking 13, 14 years old girls by force to marry their fighters. Like women are paying a high price in this war, unfortunately.
What is the capability now of the Afghan army? Do you think they can resist the Taliban?
Yeah, unfortunately, the thing is that the Taliban are not alone. Last night, just we had some news from some news agencies that the foreign commanders and fighters are joining Taliban, and they are coming from the border from Pakistan, and as well as other countries. They are joining Taliban. Like Afghan army is not just fighting the Taliban, but those groups of militias and as well as terrorist groups, and I don't know, maybe intelligent group from other countries. They are fighting them. So here we have some like limited number of special forces from air that they can the fight from air by them to the Taliban. So that's the problem for Afghan army. Otherwise, they are good, but the problem is that the war is so like everywhere, unfortunately.
The American and British and others ground forces have basically left. What do you think is possible from the outside world? If there was any help for the Afghan army that you think is possible and realistic, what do you think it would be?
Yes, when the international allies from the ground, they left, but we were hopeful to have their support in at least in the air forces. Like they can we can have their helicopters and these things that we can fight with the Taliban. But unfortunately, we don't have that thing right now. We had that for Kandahar province, but in Helmand, we are seeing that we face the lack of these things. So the thing that we are expecting here is that we need support, like air base, ground base, technically, and as well as from the equipment. So we need this support to at least defend Afghan people in Afghanistan in the Afghan republic. So that's the thing.
Farzana Kochai, thank you very much indeed. Well, joining me now is Kate Clark from the Afghan Analysts Network, who has been tracking the Taliban advance. Why are they focusing on these three cities?
Well, they've taken, we've been looking at their advance in the last 2 months. They probably controlled about 8% of the district centres at the end of April, and they're now over half. So they've taken a lot of the rural areas. They're now surrounding various of the provincial councils, so the provincial centres, including these three. Lashkargah and Kandahar are in what they consider to be their heartland. They would be huge symbolic gains if they could get them, and Herat is also very, very important. But they're then by no means the only provincial capitals that are vulnerable.
And so how far would you expect them to go? I mean, is Kabul even possibly vulnerable?
It's really difficult to make predictions at the moment, and it's sort of unfair when it's, you know, when it's people, it's the country where people live to be talking about Afghanistan descending into more intensive civil war or the government collapsing. You can understand my reluctance to do that, because to make predictions is almost to sort of advance the cause of the Taliban at the moment. And part of the problem at the moment is that this is a war of morale and narratives, and the Taliban are really emboldened. Part of that was, frankly, America's sham peace process that managed to force the Afghan government to make concessions to the Taliban while almost taking nothing from the Taliban. And we kept asking the Americans, what is your plan B? You're talking to the Taliban. They say they want a political agreement and a negotiated end to the war with the government. What happens if they don't? And unfortunately, it's been proved correct in the last couple of months that the Taliban were always intent on a military victory. And as soon as the US said that they were leaving, they have absolutely pulled out all the stops to try and take territory. And it's a terrible decision to inflict on their compatriots. As we know, this is, your last speaker and your report talked about some of the horrific violence that's been inflicted on civilians and others. But that is the decision they've taken. It's by no means over. The government should be, I would say the next few months are crucial. Let's put it at that.
We heard that Afghan MP saying the Afghan army are really struggling, particularly with air resources. Is there any prospect of anyone coming to help?
I don't think so. I mean, I think part of the reason for this very rapid and unconditional pullout that President Biden decided on is because the Americans are turning their attention elsewhere now. They've decided that Afghanistan is not at the top of their agenda. We may see at the least the Taliban controlling large parts of the country. And of course, Al-Qaeda never went away, and various other international jihadist groups.
Kate Clark, we must leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks.